in your calculator, you're going to hit the y equals button. Actually, before we even get started, let's go ahead and we're going to do second plus 712. Second plus 712. That's just going to get you back to factory settings. Except for you, Scott. Scott. Not you, because you have a Casio. However you clear yours. I don't know. Do you know how to use yours, I'm assuming? No? Okay, if you want, actually, look on with David. I will give you this one when I'm done, okay? So you guys will do it together for now. Okay, so hit the y equals button. First thing, we have to type this equation in, okay? So to get the 2/3, you're going to hit 2 divided by 3. 2/3, 2 divided by 3. All right, and then to get the absolute value, you're going to hit the math button, which is underneath the alpha key. Hit the math button. And you're going to go right arrow to number, and ABS means absolute value. If you have an 84, it's going to pop up like 2 vertical lines. If you have an 83, it's literally going to say ABS and have parentheses. Okay? So, yeah, you hit, let me clear this, so 2/3. And then next we're going to hit the math button. Hold on, let me zoom out. It's going to take 10 seconds. Oh, so the math button is right here. So hit the math button, go over to number, and ABS is the first one. Okay, so you press enter, and then you're going to do x plus 5. The x key is right here. So you're going to do x plus 5. The x key is right beneath the mode key. X plus 5. Now, if you have an 83, you have to end parentheses after that. And then at the end, we're going to type in the -7. So we got a graph. Okay, go ahead and hit graph. And you can see it should look like the graph we have that we drew. We see that? Okay. Say it again. Yours didn't work? It said error. Okay, hang on. It just means you have a typo somewhere. I can see there's an x-intercept right here, right? And I know there's one to the left, but I can't see it. It's off the screen. So go ahead and hit the window button. The left side of the screen is x-min. So x-min is the left side of the screen, x-max is the right side, y-min is the bottom, y-max is the top. Okay, so I want to go to x-min, and I want to make it a bigger negative number so I can see more of the screen. So maybe do like -15, and I'm not doing -15, I'm using the little negative button down here. So what I did is I changed my x-min to -15. And then I hit graph again, and see how I almost went over far enough, but maybe not quite. So I'm going to go ahead and hit window again. I'll make it like -20 just so I can see it real well. Okay. Does that make sense how we figured that out? Okay. So now anytime we're going and we're looking for a characteristic on our graph, we typically do second trace. See how it says blue and above calc? That's going to help us calculate different things. It's like a menu of things that we can find. So second trace. Option number 1 allows me to put in any x value that's on my screen. So my screen goes from -20 to 10, so I can plug in any x value between -20 and 10, and it will spit out the y value for you, okay? So we're going to press enter, and now it's asking me what x value I want to plug in. So I could plug in -10, I could plug in -5, and I don't have to keep going back to that menu. I can just press whatever number I want. It's going to tell me anything. Okay, if I'm looking for the y-intercept, what number do I want to plug in?
The x value of y.
An x value of 0. So plug in 0. And so the y-intercept, say it again. So you do second trace, option number 1, because that lets us plug in any number we want, and we're going to plug in 0. Okay, so the y-intercept, I'm going to go ahead and write it like a point, is 0, -3.667. We're going to get in the habit of always rounding to 3 decimal places. So unless I tell you something else, go ahead and do 3. Okay? So there's our y-intercept. And if you guys remember how we had that list of characteristics and we filled in the blank? Do you guys remember doing that on Friday? Let's turn back to that list and let's add the note on that list that to get to this we do second trace option number 1. Okay, so we're going back to that list. I'll see if I can find mine. And we're going to write second trace number 1. Okay, so on here, off to the side for y-intercept, I'm going to say second trace option number 1, and we plug in x equals 0. That's how we find the y-intercept. Okay, and then for the x-intercept, we're going to do second trace again. Sorry, let me get this all plugged in. Second trace number 1. Okay, and then to find the x-intercept, we're going to do second trace, and this time we're going to go to 0. X-intercepts are called the zeros of the graph because it's where the y value equals 0, so we would say the function equals 0, so they're the zeros of the graph. So you're going to go down to number 2, and your calculator is going to ask you the question left bound and right bound, and so when we find it, if we're looking for this one right here, we're going to say this is where the left bound should be, this is where the right bound should be. So left side and right side. So what you do is you're kind of giving your calculator, you're saying the actual answer is between this and this, look for it somewhere in between these two lines, okay? So you're going to hold the left cursor down, just hold it and you can watch it go. So get it to where it's somewhere on the left side of that point. It doesn't have to be super close to it. Everyone on the left side of that point? And you press enter, and then it asks the question right bound. And then you're going to scroll to the right of the point, and you're going to press enter. And then it says guess, and the guess is always stupid, so we press enter one more time. So this one has an x-intercept of negative 15.50. Now we have another x-intercept to look for. It's this one over here. So when we find this one, this time our left bound will be below and the right bound will be above. Okay, so we're going to hit second trace, option number 2 again. We're looking for the 0. And then I'm going to scroll with the cursor. Isn't this a nice awkward silence? Okay, so there's my left bound. And then I'll go ahead and go over. And then my right bound can be over here. And I ignore the guess because it's always stupid, and I press enter one more time. So the other x-intercept is 5.50. Okay. And then we can go ahead and we can add that to those notes that we did last time. So on the front side of the page, we'll say second trace, option number 2 is what we do to find the x-intercepts. So second trace, option number 2. All right. How do you guys feel about that? Good? Have we ever done that before? We've never used our calculator that way? Okay. So let's go ahead and do 21 and 22. So we'll make sure we can type them in. We'll make sure that we can find the intercepts. So if you want to clear your calculator to get it back to the normal window, that you do second plus 712. That's how you get it back to normal. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm hitting y equals, I'm going to go ahead and type in this equation. So for the 2/3, I just have 2 divided by 3. And then I hit the math button. And I go over to number. and I want the absolute value, ABS. So I've got x minus 3 and the minus 2 on the end. And hit graph. So this time we don't have to adjust our window because we can see everything. So how do I find the y-intercept? Yeah.
So you hit second trace and then do the value of 3.0.
Okay, so second trace, option number 1, plug in 0. So 0, 0 is the y-intercept. That means we also have one of the x-intercepts. 0, 0 is a y and an x. All right, so we found the first x-intercept with that one. It happened to be the same point. How do we find the other x-intercept? Yep, so second trace always is what we're going to go back to get to that menu. And then number 2, and we have to do left bound, right bound. So since the point is right here, that's the intercept that I'm looking for, then my left bound would be somewhere over here, and my right bound would be somewhere up here. Okay, so now it's asking left bound, so I'm going to scroll over and just make sure I'm to the left. So see, that's to the left of my point, and I'll press enter. Now it's asking for right bound, so I'm going to scroll over to the right. So my cursor's over there, my point is somewhere right in here. So I did left bound, I did right bound, press enter. The guess is always stupid. I press enter one more time. And if you guys can see, do you guys see these little arrows up here? Your calculator is telling you I'm looking for the answer in between these two x values. So I know that it's somewhere in between there. I'm going to find it. So 6, 0 is the x-intercept for that one. Yes?
Things are either 5.85 or 6.1. So just kind of assume it's 6.
Yeah, except we're going to definitely have problems with the decimal answers. Like, it could be like 6.031, and I should see 6.031. So when you do left bound, right bound, really just go to the left side and the right side, and then don't trust the guess. You really have to do it like 3 times. Yeah. Okay. All right, so let's plug in the other one. So we're going back to y equals. We can clear that out. We've got the -5, so make sure you're doing the little negative down here for -5. And then absolute value of x plus 1 with a +6 on the end. And then we're graphing it. All right, so y-intercept. I do second trace. Anybody? Second trace for y-intercept? Number 1. Oh, number 1. And I plug in 0 for the y-intercept. So my y-intercept is the point 0, 1. And then for x-intercept, I'm going to do second trace, number 2. And then I have to do left bound, right bound. So here's my first x-intercept over here. So the left bound is going to be somewhere over here, and the right bound will be somewhere up here. So I'm holding my left arrow. I've got my left bound is over here. My right bound is somewhere over there. I ignore the guess. -2.2. Are you guys getting those answers okay? Yeah? And then we'll do it again. So when we do the intercept over on the right side, this time the left bound will be above the graph and the right bound will be below the graph. So if you guys notice, depending on the direction it slants, the left bound and the right bound kind of switch places. Okay, so left bound, right bound, so 0.20. Okay. All right, what do we think? Okay, go ahead and flip to the very last problem. There was one more problem we did not do in the packet, and that was number 25. And it says, on what interval is the function greater than or equal to 0? When it says the function, what does it mean? The y value. Where is the y value greater than or equal to 0? So where does the y value equal 0? Yeah, at the x-intercepts, right? So that's where the y value equals 0. Where is the y value greater than 0? At -6, it's greater than or equal to 0. It's greater than 0 up here, right? Where else is it greater than 0?
Would this be like the -6?
So it's all these values, right? These are all positive y coordinates. You guys see that? All of those are positive y coordinates. So we would say that this part of the graph is where the function is greater than 0 or equal to 0. It's equal to 0 right there at the x-intercepts, but it's greater than 0 above the line. Anything below the x-axis is going to be where the negative y coordinates are, and we would say that's where the function is negative. So the function is positive up here, the function is negative down here. Okay, so the interval where the function is greater than or equal to 0 would be from -6, an x value of -6, all the way to an x value of 0. And I'm going to include the -6, and I'm going to include the 0, because it equals 0 exactly at those points. Does that make sense? So we are going to start to ask questions like this, like where's the function? Another way I could have phrased it is I could have said where's the function positive? And then it would have had a similar answer. It wouldn't have had brackets then, it would have been parentheses because we wouldn't be including 0. But we're going to start to ask some questions like that just so we can understand the vocabulary that we use with functions. Okay? All right, so at this point your packet should be done. Right? Yeah? Okay, make sure your name is on it. We're going to turn it in.